Now we will discuss the quality control process in cheese making industry. The shelf life of cheese is generally longer, and that is not a serious issue. Normally, the quality of cheese can be linked more with the safety rather than quality factors. The quality of cheese normally improves with the time of aging or storage, as we earlier discussed. So, like unlike other foods, where shelf life is a problem in quality control, in cheese the safety is a more serious concern as compared to shelf life, because shelf life is not an issue in cheese in a sense that the ripened cheese has to be stored for a very long time, and the longer is the storage time, better is the quality that is perceived by the end user. So the defects that can come from the food, they are hardly due to say they are quality factors, but sometimes there may be some defects that can be there, like flavor changes or the appearance changes or the texture changes of these products. We'll discuss these in detail in the next slide. So normal defects, other than the one that I earlier discussed, are the high amount of acid or bitter taste or unclean uh, taste that comes from fermented products. Sometimes it is a fruity taste that may be undesirable in many products. So these are the quality attributes, undesirable attributes rather, I would say, that are not preferred in case of many of the products which undergo undesirable changes. If you look at the structure or the body defects in the cheese, they can be crumbly, and they can have gas holes formed within these products, or surface may be discolored, or maybe the variation in color from surface to the middle. So these are the defects. Sometimes it looks like having certain crystals on it. So these are the apparent defects which should not be there in the final product. The evaluation is for making cheese is normally high quality cheddar cheese or other cheeses. They should have a balanced flavor. It is a balanced nutty flavor. It must be sharp, but it should not be bitter. So a little sharp flavor is desirable in many products, but it should not be a bitter flavor. And the ideal texture should be, it should not be open. It should not have any gas holes formed. It should be firm. It should be smooth, and it should be waxy. The waxy appearance can be felt when we actually press the cheese by hands. When it comes to the flavor of the product, as we earlier discussed, that the flavor compounds are the very high number of compounds that are responsible for flavor. There are around 200 different compounds identified that adds to the flavor of cheese, but the out of these 200, only 20 have a very determined effect or a very sharp effect on the flavor profile of these natural products. So these have to be also adjusted in a sense that we should have more desirable flavor, and the compound of these flavor compound, they should have a right balance or a right ratio in the final product. Talking about this milk, this is an important quality criteria that must be considered, that our milk should be of premium quality. It would depend upon the diet of the animal, milking animal, if it's a cow or a sheep or goat or a buffalo. So diet of the animal, milking animal, is important. Milk handling practices, the condition in which milk has been handled, were they sanitary practices or not, they are all important things that would be eventually affecting the quality of cheese. So this quality control at the farm level is also important, because it would have impact at the later quality of end product. And as we earlier discussed, in case of flavor, it is the relative proportion of the flavor profile that are there in the end product, and this flavor profile again would also depend upon factors such as farm practices or the feeding practices of animals, because certain flavors might come from the feed into final product, or the microorganisms can also play their role in development of certain flavors. When we age the cheese for a longer time, there is further breakdown of proteins into amino acids, and those amino acids can be further broken down to produce compounds such as ammonia and sulfur. And you know that ammonia and sulfur has stronger pungent taste and odors, so they should not be there in many cases, although in certain cheese products these are the desirable attributes, because they would show that the cheese has been aged for a reasonable amount of time. But it depends upon whether these flavors are liked or not. But if they becomes very strong, then they would be undesirable. Especially these sulfur compounds are generally considered desirable in some of the cheeses, not all, but some of the cheeses. They might have this good attribute that is considered as having these sulfur compounds. The consumer or the end user, they would also judge the cheese from some other factors other than the one we already discussed. For example, its melting behavior, its grinding behavior, the slicing pattern or ease of slicing, making these slice. These would also be considered by the end user as a quality factor of the cheese. Cheese would also be keep changing during during aging process. All the flavor keeps on changing, the textures keep on changing, and the texture can be classified in many different ways. There are many terms that are used for particular textures. For example, it can be corky, it can be crumbly, it can have crystals, it can be meaty. The meaty is the one that has more grains in it. It can be gassy, means there might be gas bubbles visible. It can be open. Open mean having holes or some defects or openings within these cheese structure. It can be pasty when we spread it. It can be short and weak. So these are different terms that are used as the attributes of texture of cheese. And they must be controlled in a sense that they should not have undesirable texture properties in the final product. When it comes to safety, as we earlier discussed, because normally the cheese making process, it takes care of a lot of the other factors such as feeding or the quality control steps are involved that would reduce the incidence of safety concerns. So generally, cheese are not very much linked with the food safety incidences or outbreaks. They are not very common, but they are possible, and we have seen some examples in Canada. There are incidences. For example, in 1982, 1984, and 1998, there have been a major salmonella-based illness that has been reported in Canada, and this salmonella actually can it can survive in those aging conditions or storage conditions, and the survival time is around 7 to 10 months. So if it's there, if the pathogen gets into cheese, it can stay there for 7 to 10 months time, and that can lead to the safety issues or the foodborne diseases that can be caused by cheese. Similarly, another serious pathogen, Listeria monocytogenes, we discussed that it also causes abortions in pregnant women, and it can have other serious issues. It can also survive in cheese for a longer time, much longer time. That is around, it is reported to be 434 days, long time in which it has shown to survive within cheese that has been stored at 1.66 degrees C. So even at lower temperature and longer shelf lifetime, this pathogen can survive. So there are chances that some pathogen may be able to survive in these products, and that may be linked to the safety issues. So that has to be concerned, because if the cheese is consumed, that would bring a bad name to the manufacturer, and then it would also lead to the losses as well as the bad reputation given to the product. So this was a little more about how the quality control checks are applied at the cheese making industry.